There's a story there in the Irish newspapers today to do with a couple who had a High Court decision made against them. Pepper Finance were after 3 houses. They were looking for an order for sale of 3 houses belonging buy-to-lets which belong to the couple. The couple, and the unusual thing in this case, or not so unusual, the judge basically said that he had a great deal of sympathy for the couple, but that he had to decide cases based on the law, not on sympathy. But in this situation, the couple borrowed 1.125 million of a loan back in 2006, I think it was, and they've paid back 950,000. So they've paid back 950,000 of a 1.125 million loan, and the couple have had the order granted against them for Pepper to sell the 3 buy-to-lets. Now, the lady in question, one of the borrowers, was very upset about this and thought that they should be entitled to hold on to the properties, given that they'd paid back so much money of the original sum that was borrowed. And as I say, the judge did have sympathy, but the problem is the interest. At the outset, in the offer letter in 2007, the offer letter stated that they were borrowing 1.127 million, but the total amount repayable on the loan facility was 2.252 million. The difference between these two figures gives you the cost of credit, that is the interest, and that amounted to 1.125 million over the course of a 30-year facility at 5.4%. Thus, the amount paid back by the couple may have been 950,000, but the remaining balance, when you take in interest into account, still stood at 1.4 million, and Pepper Finance were granted an order for the sale of the properties. The borrowers explained why they were unable to meet the payments over the course of the years since they borrowed the money first in 2007, including the loss of employment, COVID-19, rent price restrictions, unpaid rent, etc., etc. But the fundamental point, I suppose, of this video is, and the fundamental point of this particular case in the High Court is, that regardless of how much money you borrow and how much money you repay, banks are in the business of making money. And banks, in order to make money, make it by charging interest on what they advance. And they pay interest on deposits, but they pay interest on deposits at a lower rate than on the money that they advance as loans. And the difference between the two interest rates is the bank's margin. But essentially the bank makes money from advancing or lending money and getting paid the interest. And in this particular case, the couple paid back nearly all of the original capital. But paying back nearly all of the original capital is no good, quite frankly, if the remaining balance that's outstanding is still 1.4 million. And remember, they originally borrowed 1.127 million. But as I say, you must take into account the interest figures, and the total amount repayable on the loan facility was 2.252 million, and that was stated in the loan offer letter in 2007. I know many people will have a great deal of sympathy for this couple, and I do as well. I'm a borrower and have been a borrower for since 1986, so whatever length of time that is, it's well over 30 years, I think. I've been a borrower since I was 23 years of age, borrowing from banks to buy properties and develop them and so on. But I'm not naive enough to think that if I borrow $1 million and pay back $1 million, that I'm in the clear, because I'm not. I do recognise, and I studied banking in college, that banks make money from interest, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately. As I say, the judge in this case had sympathy for the couple, but had to make his decision based on the law, and he granted the order to Pepper for the sale of the 3 buy-to-lets. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you gave it the thumbs up down below. Thanks a lot.